This is Double XL Shot Callers, conversations with hip hop's power players. I'm your host, Sowmya Krishnamurthy, your favorite rapper's favorite journalist. I'm very excited to have Riggs Morales, A&R extraordinaire here. Welcome, Riggs.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you said this is your first podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I listen to plenty of them, but I've just never, it's interesting because I've done interviews before, but the medium has changed so much, online and, it's just, this is my first podcast though.
Well, we are very happy that we're taking your podcast virginity, and I promise it won't be as
Sweet.
Intimidating as prom night.
Gotcha. If I can remember prom night.
Wow. Well, so take me back. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from New York, Washington Heights, Uptown, New York. Shout out 163rd Broadway. Born and raised in New York. Dominican, Puerto Rican descent. New Yorican to the core. Dominican, something. Yeah, hybrid.
Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, fluently. Un poquito.
You sound like me in like my high school Spanish class. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. So you currently have a very impressive title at Atlantic Records.
Wow. Yeah, I guess,
You're kind of a big deal.
I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love what I do, and forgive me if I come across I've been in the business for so long that titles are great and accomplishments are great, but it could be gone any day.
Facts.
So I don't take it for granted, and I try not to let the personality and the title be. It's not the same thing, So, sorry, that's probably the kind of stuff you share later on down the line in the interview, but Riggs Morales. I am Vice President of A&R and Artist Development over at Atlantic Records.
So you've been in this game, like you said, a very long time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So coming up in New York, were you just one of those kids, you were always around music? Did you want to rap? Did you come up around any artists? Tell me about just that kind of first interest in hip hop.
Started with music first and foremost. I grew up in a household where my mom would play like old romantic bolero records, and then I used to love, quite honestly, like pop music. I'm an MTV kid, so if it was on MTV or Video Music Box, that was my parameter for listening to music. I don't recall really being tuned to radio at the time.
Favorite MTV VJ?
Say again.
Favorite MTV VJ?
Downtown Julie Brown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like that you added that little British
Peep
accent
that?
in
Peep
there.
that? Peep
I
that?
saw that. I saw that bloke. I saw
Rusty.
that.
Little rusty
bit, yeah.
bloke. Amen. And
now, were you allowed to watch MTV? Because coming up in Michigan, I wasn't allowed. So I would sneak it in my parents' bedroom.
No, it was like, sit here, and that's it. Like, it kept us busy while my mom went off and, did what she did as a loving parent. But, I grew up on the MTV generation. And hip-hop didn't really come into way later. Quite honestly, I found hip-hop to be a bit annoying in the beginning.
Wow.
I just wasn't into the bad, but I just was not. It just didn't, not really my cup of tea.
Now, were you young? So maybe like you weren't at the parties, like where people were DJing and b-boying, or just wasn't something that interested you?
It was a part of the fact. It was the third music outlet would be just going outside in the streets. Like, it was everywhere. But it was mostly, whatever was considered urban at the time. Freestyle music, old dance records, old dance R&B records. And hip hop was everywhere, but like the message was around. Like that, I remember the beat to the message. Never really connected to the words. Meanwhile, in hindsight, and I stand by this, it's the greatest hip hop song of all time. It's like number one. Like, just for me, bar none. And then as time went on, I connected a little bit more to Run DMC. There was a little bit more of aggression. There was a little more edge there. When I really went full-fledged is when I first heard, I want to say EPMD.
Okay.
Yeah, because in school, the backdrop was Eric B. and Rakim. It was the golden era folks. But I never really, again, it was just in the backdrop. It was in school and, Biz Markie, the Fat Boys. It was just everything was very colorful, and then EPMD came into play and it was like, whoa, okay, like, they're serious. And and then from then on, it just went down this rabbit hole. I think a lot of that has to do with age and the delayed reaction to what you love with music. Because even up until maybe 10 years ago, I went through a Led Zeppelin thing. Like, kind of just like, oh, wow, Led Zeppelin was kind of dope. They were basically a
They
white
got
blues
some
band.
records, right?
Yeah, they got some records. Same thing with the Beatles. I went through a Beatles thing where as a kid, I didn't care. During my core time as a music journalist, I really only cared about solely hip hop, kind of got stigmatized as being the hip hop guy, the backpack guy. And as time went on, you open your mind a little bit more. A lot of that had to do with hip hop because I just love break beats and I love samples, And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that really gave me a nice amount of music education. So, hip hop was always there, but it wasn't full on there until EPMD came into my life.
So, young Riggs, are you thinking about picking up the mic? Are you thinking about getting into music at all as a career? Or what did you want to do coming up?
Fireman.
Really?
Yeah, not at all. Music.
They get all the
like,
girls. I'm just going to let you know that, yeah.
I just obsessed with fire engines. And secondary would have been a garbage man, which, that it was almost the trajectory had it not been me going back to school because I had dropped out. And music, being in the music business in general was just not even a thought. I just didn't know what that was. You listen to the music, you read the credits, which I was always obsessed with, and that was it. I didn't know there was an A&R and marketing or label executives. I had no idea what that was until I read an article on Puff Daddy. It was a Vibe article that I highlighted his plight, and it talked about his days as an intern, as an A&R at Uptown. And this guy was responsible, like he owned stock in my adolescence. Jodeci, Mary J. Blige, Biggie, like this guy's run. I honestly think he is the greatest urban hip hop A&R of all time, without question. We can argue about that for days. But Bad Boy and before Bad Boy and then Bad Boy was just like fascinating. So when I realized that someone gets paid to find talent and to sign records and pick singles, and why I thought I might be good at that, because as I'm obsessively buying every album under the stars and reading the credits, every record that I love on the album that's not a single ends up becoming a single. So I'm like, oh, this is my joint. Oh, that's the next single.
You have an ear.
Right. I didn't know that's what it was called.
And then people get paid a lot of money in this industry to have an ear.
To have an ear, and even that in itself is like, a science and intuitiveness. It's just a whole other thing that, as time went on, I had to study on. And I set my sights on, look, I know The Secret's already made a big thing about it, but I do believe that if you throw it out into the universe, you're on your way towards that. And you just really got to put the drive and effort to get there. And that article was in 94.
Who was on the cover of that article?
I think it was Biggie and Puff. It was
it was that joint cover that they had together.
Yeah. If it wasn't that, it was another one where it was just like, because I was buying everything again, The Source, Vibe. I was just buying anything. It just gave me my monthly rap fix. And that was the groundbreaking point. That was the start of, all right, now how do I get in?
How old are you at this time?
I want to say I'm 16.
Now, were you in school or you say you had dropped out?
I might have been in school but didn't go.
Okay.
So
what were you doing in your free time when you weren't in school?
Cutting class, seeing the city, just enjoying life. I just was like not stable enough to stay in class, and that happened for about 3 years. And to the point where,
I'm not going to ask your GPA in high school.
No idea.
Okay.
No idea. And I loved learning. I just wasn't built for that structure. I come to find out in hindsight. So when I dropped out, I went to apply to be a garbage man because I grew up the son of a super.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My father was responsible for cleaning 3 buildings, and how I got my allowance was helping him out. So I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty, and, as a kid growing up in Washington Heights, you roam around the back alleys and people mistakenly throw out toys. You just find some really interesting shit, like crack vials in various colors, but...
Hey, one man's garbage is another man's treasure. So Riggs was going through everyone's garbage in the Heights.
So but that was in the back. But then I was actually every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday was garbage day. That's when the garbage man would have to come around and pick it up, and I had to help my father take everybody's garbage from the building. And so I was like, you know what? I'm being trained to be a garbage man. So that's a great plan B. They get paid well. There's, benefits, blah,
Union,
blah, blah.
right, all that?
All that stuff.
Great.
So I go, and they're like, sorry, kid, you got to have your high school diploma. And then on top of that, my mom was like, whatever you're going to do, do what you're going to, just please, if you can't get your high school diploma. And I was fortunate enough to get accepted to this school, University Heights High School, which allowed you to almost make up all that time within like a 2 to 3 year span, back to back to back.
Like alternative high school kind
It was
of?
exactly an alternative high school, which in hindsight, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in life. It was that University Heights was responsible for saving me.
Wow.
And I went there. I found people that were like-minded, kind of like ADD, but creative. You had teachers that were really patient. And instead of a class of like 20, each teacher got like maybe 8 kids. So everybody got dealt with, they got a nice amount of attention individually. And the kind of thesis and curriculums that they were like, have you do, a lot of it had to do with what you felt passionate about. So one of my first like thesis is to graduate to the next course is like I did a thing on Mumia Abu-Jamal at the time when I was really on my political ish.
Sure.
And then I did one on Who Shot Ya. Like I broke down the entire song and as to why it relates to how he's talking to Tupac. And for folks who don't really listen to the way I listen to it, it was a blast. So I had a chance to dissect this song and really pin everything together. It was like my first little bit of investigative journalism, even though I wasn't in the business. So just to confirm,
you feel Who Shot Ya was a direct shot at Pac? Because I think it was too, but I know, it's still polarizing.
It's so polarizing because to this day, when I hear that record, I remember as a kid hearing, he cut that way before.
Right.
But goddamn, the
timing was impeccable.
The timing and the chorus, like the whole correlation between Pac, it's just like, yeah. So, as time goes on, you don't know it. I haven't been able to go back in detail and like really ask when that song was cut, and then kind of put 2 and 2 together. I only went off of what I saw and what the media provided. And from what, I'm listening on the song. And, and that was a blast. And during the tail end of high school was when I got an opportunity to intern at the Source. And how that happened was I was introduced to my mentor, Bones Malone. And Bones Malone was a legendary music journalist. And, kind of like he was the standard during that time period. He also used to hang out in Washington Heights with a couple of old graffiti heads that were like my village. And I had to do some showing and proving. I followed him around. It's just like, we would go places and just like,
just kind of being a fly on the wall, kind of a sponge. Yeah.
100%.
But did he know you or were you just some random kid tagging along?
Yes.
He did know you.
No. I was a random kid tagging along, but he did know me.
So you kept that respectful distance of playing your position.
Yeah. Quite honestly, like I had the night shift on the block. Like I wasn't working. I needed work, so I used to have to do the night shift. And Bones Malone would come around with the night shift. I used to, and and it was probably one of the coldest winters in recent memory. I think it was like the winter of 94, 95. And he would just come around and I'd kick it with him. And if you know Bones is different. Bones is eclectic. Bones is almost like what they call like the gonzo journalist, where he's just like, his approach is completely left of center, but in such a cool and innovative way that his articles to this day have a completely different tone than anybody else I've read since, in any medium, in any genre. So worked under Bones. I, earned enough stripes for him to vouch for me. I did not know that the Source went through a big walkout back in 90, maybe it might have been 95. And I got introduced. He said, look, here, go see my man, Jeremy Miller. And I went to see Jeremy Miller. Jeremy Miller gave me my first assignment. And I didn't know. The show. I had to review the soundtrack to the show, Russell Simmons, The Show. And, I had to go see the movie. It was just like, as a hip hop kid coming up and all of a sudden.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It's
and
just
to do it
like,
at the Source, which was like the Bible.
Right. The Source itself, like in order for us to get it, getting an issue with the source at that time was not the easiest thing. Like, I had to walk a mile down to the one newsstand that had it. And I used to tell everyone on the block, I'm going to go get the source. Who wants in? So I'd round up everybody. I'd buy my copy based off, I had to charge everybody extra because I'm going to go get you the magazine. The magazine
You were basically
costs like $3.
like Uber for the source before
100%.
it existed. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, I gave them their actually more like Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm just like,
you were like drone delivery. Yeah.
A human drone delivery.
Yeah.
Yes. And
was this a paid assignment, unpaid?
Paid.
Wow. What was the rate back then?
$1 a word.
Wow. Let me just say, in 2018, $1 a word is actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, $1 a word. I remember. Oh my God, there was some guys that were getting $1.50 a word during my prime, days.
And what was the word count? Just so we can do some quick math.
This one was $3.50.
Still a good amount of change for a kid, intern, first assignment.
Oh my God, I did not care if I didn't care if I got paid.
Right.
I just did not like. So I didn't know that assignments were monthly. So I would go every day. You got anything else? You got anything else? You got anything else? Like, nah, dude, just come back. I'll call you.
Right.
If I need something, just give me and that was the beginning. And around on the third or fourth assignment, I had asked, hey, if you guys are looking for an intern, I'm here. Just like, let me know if there's a list that I can get on to be an intern, because I'm under the assumption everybody's like signing up to be an intern at the source. Lo and behold, I ended up interning for Selwyn Seyfu Hines, who had just started. And big valuable lesson in that was, Selwyn had just started. He's getting acclimated. He can probably use an assistant, which he probably already had, but then, another set of hands to help out with whatever minuscule stuff. And you want to make yourself valuable, no matter at what stage you are in your career. Me as a VP now, I have to make myself valuable to the company and my bosses and the person above me.
Totally.
And making myself valuable to Selwyn, for example, was like one of my first assignments. There was a huge box of cassette tapes from Unsigned Hype that were just being collected from everyone sending them over. At the time, the Unsigned Hype column, if you were highlighted on that column, there was a 90% chance you were either going to get a deal or a call from a record label.
And so many names have come through that.
My God.
Biggie, Mobb
Deep.
Yeah.
It was like
Capone and Nori. Yeah.
It was Mob, like Common, DMX. It's like, it's like a Hall of Fame
It was the
class.
cosign. If you get that stamp, you're probably getting a deal.
And in hindsight, I don't know if I thought like this at the time, which I probably did. Remember, my aspirations was to be in an A&R. We haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
And if there was anything that was going to showcase my portfolio for finding talent, it would be Unsigned Hype.
Sure.
But I didn't earn that stripe yet. I had to go through that refrigerator box and go through every single demo and just differentiate the good stuff from the bad. And believe me, there wasn't that much good stuff.
Now, was this your job, or you took it upon yourself, initiative?
Internship. Like, it's part of whatever Selwyn needed me to do. If the people in the art department wanted me to go buy pizza, I'll go, like, whatever I had to do. Does anybody here need help? Does anybody need anything? I'm here, because I'm only here for like a few hours, and then I got to get to work at the video store, and then I got to go to school the next day. So
so you're literally listening to these cassette tapes, right?
Yeah.
What are you listening for? Because at some point, does it all just blur together? Is there something? Is it the tone? Is it lyricism, delivery? What were you listening for back then, going through this box of tapes?
In hindsight, I didn't think that deeply about it. I just had to listen to what was dope.
Okay.
It's that simple.
That's
just
fair.
like, this kind of dope. I'll put this to the side. And who came out of that box? Fucking David Banner. David Banner, through Crooked Letters, came out of that box. It's just like, he's dope.
He's a pretty dope guy, yeah.
Yeah, and he obviously went on to some great success, and a couple more guys that might have, came and went, but now I definitely listen to particular things.
Okay.
Like, which obviously we can get into later on, but like.
So what are some of those things now? Because obviously your ear has changed, your job has changed.
Oh, it adjusts.
From sort of like you're kind of dope to now, are there specific markers that you want to hit? Or?
Yeah, I'm a big voice, perspective. I've had to readjust as an A&R over the last couple of years, because I'm groomed from a different school, from a particular school. I'm an 80s, 90s, mid 2000s guy. So I like soulful samples. I love bars. I love perspective. I like voices and things of that sort. Nowadays, it's a whole new wave that has had me like, yo, like, I gotta
recalibrate. Yeah.
Gotta recalibrate.
Yeah.
My good friend No ID years ago, when I first had to recalibrate, he was like, in order for you to understand what's going on now, it's not easy, but you're gonna have to get rid of that 30-year encyclopedia of hip hop that you have in your head.
And coming from him that says a lot, because he's a walking encyclopedia.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, that's at the core of our relationship. All we really talk about is like
Yeah.
these deep rooted perspectives on hip hop that, like, you know, take place in studios, like the randomest, you know, Common happens to be here. The Guru happens, and it just turns into this whole why this guy was this and why he wasn't that. Long story short, you know, I went through that with Action Bronson, who I was his A&R. And with Action Bronson, I loved Action Bronson. I enjoyed it, but I was a diehard Ghostface guy.
Right.
So I had to recalibrate and reset and say, all right, these kids that love him now didn't grow up on Ghostface, so this is new to them. You know, so... And
he's got kind of his own style and other sort of nuance that differentiates him from Ghost.
Ghost, exactly. Yeah. Ghost is one of a kind, you know, but if you're a old head, that's what you hear sonically, you know, just from a voice standpoint.
I agree. So you're going through this box, and I think, you know, probably the one tape that we can say really was the entree to that next level was a little guy named Marshall.
No, it was funny. Throughout the course... I got to, in the 5 years that I was there at Unsigned Hype, as I'm building up this portfolio, I had Cardinal Official, Joel Santana, Last Emperor, a couple of guys that came and went, but most notably was Eminem. That was like in 97.
So take me back. You pop this tape in. Does it say Eminem? Does it say Marshall? What does it say on the tape?
Yeah, it says Eminem, but
okay.
Quite frankly, like, I just had a lot of really good friends that I respected and admired throughout the underground, kept talking about him, you know, from former Unsigned Hypes. One of them was my boy AL, All Lyrics, and he was like, yo, have you heard Eminem? I was like, no. And I listened to him, I was like, damn, the fuck? Like, this dude could spit. Again, this is at the core of, like, the spit era.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you're a spitter, Cannabis, Pun, Big Al... whole
lyrical miracles, right?
Lyrical to the 10th power.
Right.
But, you know, there was an art to it. Like, it really is an art. You know, being a lyricist is an art. And I heard him, and I was just like, I don't care what he was. There was no color to it.
Did you know he was white at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was told, it was like, yo, it's this white boy. His name is Eminem. And I heard it, and at the time, please bear in mind, man, like, when you look back in hindsight, yo, it was like the Beastie Boys... Milkbone, Vanilla Ice, like, you know, the white rapper who hadn't really been done much justice you know, prior to M. So here comes M and completely disrupting it in a way that still folks were skeptic. Like, you know, he didn't get a deal right away.
And you said 97, so taking us back, we're talking the peak of the shiny suit era. Def Jam is sort of starting to come up with some of their kind of the antithesis to that. The DMX,
it was Rough
Jay-Z.
Riders, Cash Money, and Rockefeller, and Def Jam. It's just like...
And where does Eminem fit within that? It's hard, right? You need to have a level of foresight. Cause...
He was definitely from the raucous Fat Beats school of that circle, which is a circle that was completely more underground from what everyone else I just named.
Yep.
You know, everyone was already established, but... You know, he didn't play in that circle. Completely just differentiated himself from everyone. Funny enough, I remember when I handed in the assignment, wrote the article, and my editor was like,
"This is what he looks like."
Like, what is this? And it was like, "Yo, that's Eminem. Is he dope? Is he good?" It's like, yeah, he's really dope. You know, so just, you know, let it.
What did he look like back then? Was it like what we know, the kind of platinum blonde hair? Or
no, he had brown hair and a big old Kurt Cobain shirt.
Wow. Which would be actually very fitting in, I think, 2018. But back then would have
been... Yeah, he looked like a hipster.
Sacrilege.
In hindsight, in hindsight, he looked like a hipster.
Wow.
This is what he looked like. But
yeah,
at the time...
looking at this picture right now, and... I mean, looks like what we look like, much younger in the face, very baby face.
He looks like Mac Miller right there.
Yeah.
Like early Mac Miller.
Mac Miller if he's, like, been crying all night.
There you go.
Yeah, but, like, he's a baby face. Like, if you look at this, the first thing isn't... This could be one of the greatest rappers of all time.
No, I
Yeah.
just knew he was amazing.
So your editor really though trusted your judgment. Like, look, we aren't sure, but you really fuck with it, so let's run the story.
But at this point, I could have posted up a donkey on Unsigned Hype, and because that's how much trust I had. They knew that I was very passionate about it, and while my intentions were ultimately to be an A&R down the line, it wasn't like I was advertising like I want to be an A&R, I want to be an A&R, you know.
Did you tell anyone about those aspirations, or did you keep it pretty low key?
My close friends knew.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure, and prior to me, you know, one of my other heroes was Maddie C. Maddie C used to have the Unsigned Hype column.
And
but
he
also
discovered Biggie famously, yeah.
He discovered Biggie, but then also went on to Loud Records to run their A&R and signed Wu-Tang and Pun and Mobb Deep. So he was my standard. It was like, all right, so I guess I'm next in line of that school. At some point, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm gonna leave the magazine and go A&R. I left the magazine in 2000, and it wasn't necessarily to A&R. I went down. I got involved during the big internet bubble, the big the internet wave in 2000, where
Internet wave 1.0, yeah.
1.0.
Yeah.
Oh my God, which lasted like 6 months.
Right.
You know, before the big old bubble bursted, and you know, but that fortunately, as I'm at this place called Volume, where the sales pitch was, it was an HBO funded company, and I guess it was a precursor to The Ringer when you think about it. But,
Oh, so it's like sports, culture,
hip hop, well, yeah, music and culture.
And it was called Volume. Wow.
Primarily urban, and some great people were there. Like they hired, who was there? Smokey Fontaine was running it.
Okay.
My homegirl Norma Augenblick, who used to be Puff's assistant, was
Right.
running.
Yes.
Jerry Barrow, Chuck, who went on to find allhiphop.com.
Wow.
And famous stylist. Why I forget her name? She does all the Hove stuff. Ambrose.
June Ambrose.
June Ambrose.
Of course. Wow.
Yeah, we had a squad.
Wow.
But again, it only lasted.
This feels very almost Giant magazine-ish. I know
right before
Smokey
Giant
was there, yeah.
Right before
Yeah.
Giant. Smokey did Giant after. Yeah, right after.
Yeah.
But
That's a good squad though. A lot of talent.
Squad. And while I was there, my good friend Proof, rest in peace, was just like, yo, why don't you help manage D12? So I go to Paul Rosenberg, who manages M, and I'm like, hey, Paul, Proof wants me to come on board to help manage D12. And in hindsight, again, looking at it, now that I know what I know, it was probably like, how about why don't you just, come work here at Shady?
Wow. So wait, how did you know Paul? Because we're jumping a little. You write this Eminem article, which is a huge kind of milestone in his career. Does Paul reach out to you? How do you kind of get connected to that whole Shady
I met
family?
Paul and Eminem at the same time. Paul's been there since day one.
Wow.
So this was 2 years before he blew up, and then M takes off, and they did quite well for themselves. He established himself as a solo artist, and then at the time, record labels were giving artists, like vanity labels, where it's just like
Everyone had a label.
Everyone had a label. Here you go, Shady Records. He signs D12. So I go, and when Paul gave me that offer, I took it, and I went to work for Goliath Artists, which was the management company for Paul Rosenberg. They managed Eminem, Cypress Hill, Exhibit, and while I helped out with those three in whatever capacity I was allowed, I just needed to create my own niche while I was there, while still writing, by the way.
So you still worked at Volume?
No, at Volume I was already gone, and so I decided, let me start the producer arm of the company, where it's just like, let me manage all the producers, only producers. So I would represent Dame Grease, Muggs, Alchemist, the Beat Nuts. I just worked with a lot of really awesome. They just happened to be friends that needed some management. And that went well. And about a year later, I had a conversation with Paul where I was just like, yo, Paul, are we only going to sign things from Detroit? Because we had Obi Trice and we had D12. Are we really trying to just let me know? That way I can, just keep it in, just become one with that logic. It's like, no, I want to compete with Def Jam. I want to really do some, I want us to be established. Yeah, exactly. And about a month later, I happen to be good friends with Sean Money XL, the producer. And we smoking a joint. I'm watching what's going on with 50. He's person non grata, obviously being blackballed. from everywhere, but getting hotter. And I was of the logic of like,
So are we talking
damn,
about the How to Rob era 50?
nah, we're talking got shot already.
Okay.
Like we're talking
Like he
the
was bad
first.
news. I remember those headlines. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
sort of like you don't want to fuck with this guy
at all.
on a corporate level.
On a corporate
Yeah.
level, but I always felt like we played in our own sandbox. We weren't affected by the Irv Gotti touch in a sense. Like we never really used Irv Gotti production. So we meaning Shady and Aftermath.
Right.
That camp in general. So when Fifth, the idea of bringing Fifth on board, you know, was it was a little scary. But once Eminem heard the demos, he was just like, "Yo, let's go." Him and Dre obviously turned into this big old thing called Get Rich or Die Trying.
Mm-hmm. So when you like saw 50 though, something about him like spoke to you, like, look, there's a charisma, I see star power,
Oh
or was it
no!
sort of just like a crapshoot?
When I first heard 50, I was like, sounds
Mm-hmm.
like Mace. He's just trying to get on your nerves. It was like
Those are
shtick to
fighting
me.
words. I'm a big Mace fan, but continue.
Well, at the time it was just like, it just to me Mace was the standard.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you sound like anybody, I'm big against that. Like you sounding like anybody was just at the time the purest in me. Being like, nah, that's not the move. And it wasn't until he got shot that, a couple of things obviously changed, which I think he's acknowledged over and over. Like his perspective clearly changed. So he became much more prolific, deeper. Like when you hear a record like Many Men, you're just like, yo.
Well, you're faced with your own mortality, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's literally
exactly.
a life-changing event.
Big time. And but also the way he sounded, the way he approached music.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the first to really embrace that southern swag.
Sure.
Being from New York without trying to sound like he's from the South. He just knew how to ride that pocket, just kind of get in that pocket, as evidenced by Wankster. And that's when I became like an overnight like fan. I'm not even gonna lie, like I was a day oneer. I know he was dope, great beat selection, but it wasn't until afterwards that it really just changed everything. And it wasn't even a crapshoot; it was a risk.
Yeah.
But it was a risk, obviously, that was worth taking because that just, put Shady Records in a whole nother stratosphere for the next couple of years.
I mean, being at that point with 50 and such a sort of, I guess, heated beef, right? That was very public. Everyone knew 50 versus Ja. Being behind the scenes, did you ever fear for your safety? Like I always remember, I hear from
times.
kind of older people, they talk about when they would go to the G Unit offices, like there had to be like bulletproof glass, and
We had bulletproof doors to this day.
Yeah.
We meaning at Shady, like they had to this when the office recently closed. I had like that same bulletproof door, like a big old Hannibal Lecter, with the sliding. Who is it? Yeah, it was real. It was very real.
Yeah.
And you felt like any given moment, if you were in the same room with anybody with anybody who's on the other side of the beef, things are gonna happen. So at the end of the day, I wasn't out looking for that. A lot of the staff had to wear vests. A lot of people embraced that.
Yeah.
Just like dogs. Like I gotta go home. I got a family. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not really trying to get caught up there like that, but I'm not gonna run either.
Yeah.
But there was never a situation that really called for me being like,
Mm-hmm.
let's go, we're here. Because, them dudes, everybody rolled deep.
Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah.
Like, it was armies, platoons, kind of situation at the time. So.
Yeah.
And Shady, thankfully, always rolled, we rolled very low-key,
Mm-hmm.
very nondescript. Paul Rosenberg, everybody on the staff, super low-key.
Yeah.
Nobody really advertised what they did. Never really flaunted, no jewels, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me the way you have to move.
Absolutely. So at your time at Shady, what's kind of the project or artist you're most proud of working on their project?
I gotta say, out of all my years there, the one I was most proud of was the Recovery album, because the whole, this is now from the business trajectory thing. It took a long time for me to actually A&R something. Keeping in mind when I started in '95 and my intentions to A&R, I got my first credit in '01 with the 8 Mile soundtrack.
Wow.
Then I got a second credit again with the Get Rich or Die Trying. But on Recovery, which was way later, like maybe 10, 12 years later, was when I finally got the opportunity to work directly and with M.
Wow.
Whereas prior to that, him and Dre, nobody's touching that formula for like 6 albums. They're not touching that formula. That
How
is
do
their thing.
you stay patient but without getting complacent though in those situations?
That's a good question. You educate yourself because if you stay complacent, it gets frustrating, and you better find something else to do to occupy your time with the talents that you have. One of the things that I did was create the Monday Night Fight Club, which was an awesome outlet for battle raps, which came from the reaction to 8 Mile. Every demo I got, from folks, they're all battle rappers, which they can't make songs, but if you give a battle rapper 2 minutes, it's pretty fascinating what they're able to do and what they're able to say. So that went well. I ended up selling that idea to MTV. Had some fun with that, and then of course you had that whole wave. It was Smack, Monday Night Fight Club. It was just like a whole other subgenre that's done really well. And if you don't do that, you're gonna get frustrated, and you're hindering
Bitter.
your education. Yeah, bitter. You're gonna hinder your. It's like, to me, that's the thing, and I learned that the hard way. It's on you, man. It's on you. Like, it is up to you to get out of the situation that you're in. And I was kind of already prepared for the situation with recovery, meaning I was waiting for the day that Eminem would call and ask to hear production from other people. So I had a stash already, like, just ready, in case. Yeah, which, by the way, my practice run was dealing with Fifth and the G Unit. I was giving them, lacing those dudes. They were always recording. And I was always giving them beat CDs with, like, from this guy, that guy. So I had a nice batch of ideas that I sent over to M. He reacted to them really well. And they were like the nucleus for what ended up becoming the Recovery album, which was his comeback album. And that did well, and that put me, in a good place. Just not only creatively, but from a confidence standpoint. And when I say confidence, not like I'm running around on some cocky shit. I'm just more so like, you need reassurance that you're good at what you do.
Exactly.
No matter what you do, it's
because you always have that plan B garbage man in the back of your mind. Like, look, if this doesn't work out, I'm out of here.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, with that, like, I was ready to accept and embrace that.
Sure, of course.
But it's just like, with this occupation that we do, you're only as good as your last hit.
True.
And with A&Ring, it's like you are, as someone once told me, you're the last one thanked and the first one fired.
Wow.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And if you're not bringing in results through your A&Ring skill set, or through your relationships, or through results rather, you're gone.
We'll find another pair of ears.
Exactly. And the one thing I did at Shady was always watch the climate for A&Rs. You'd be like, damn, this guy got promoted, and that guy got promoted. Damn, that guy got a great situation. None of those guys lasted a year.
Wow. What do you attribute to that?
I think that as an A&R, you could ride a wave. You get a big thing going, all eyes on you. Now people are coming at you. You could cash out on that.
Yep.
But you have expectations. And as soon as you do that, the clock ticks.
Yep. Because now you're spending the label's money. You want to,
my God, if you don't deliver, it's a wrap.
Yep.
Big factor that went into, like, when I segued and left, I did 12 years at Shady Records. And when I finally, a quick 12 years, like, I can't believe it's been 12 years. Anybody that's listening to this who's like in their early 20s, just know that from 25 to 30, it's like one long year. It's going to go very fast.
Totally.
So life comes at you.
So enjoy yourself a little bit.
Oh,
I know.
my God.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. But also don't waste time. Like, I always hear the whole, what would old rigs tell young rigs? Stop wasting time.
Wow. What were you wasting time, in your opinion, in hindsight?
Not doing enough.
Really?
Yeah, I just wasn't doing enough. I'm like, looking back now, like, you know what? Maybe I could have put a little bit more time towards, and maybe I should have. God damn, I wasted a bunch of time doing that. But those are also the great education. I managed and developed like 4 or 5 other rappers in between my time at Shady.
Wow.
That's me practicing in a sense, because Shady dropped albums every once in a while.
Yeah, so what do you do in the interim?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll take on an artist like, Axel Leon. I had a great time, helping develop him during his early stages. Another fella by the name of STS, Sugar Tongue Slim, some kids from the Lower East Side, and this guy, that guy, producers. Again, you got to keep yourself, you got to keep, you got to, work on your craft, so to speak. So
How do you stay motivated though when the artist you've poured so much time and emotion and resources in, when they don't pop off because you're coming in with this crazy history of 50 and M and success. What happens if you're working with an artist who doesn't pop off? I mean, how did you kind of
I accept it and then
Okay.
just learn, you learn from that,
Yeah.
what to do better on the next go around. And sometimes it's not really you. At the end of the day, it's also the artist. You can give the artist all the resources they need, but it's on them to level up mentally
Yeah.
and have a clear idea of exactly what it is that they want to do and who they want to be. Me as an A&R, I am the person giving them that resource, that insight, that input, and everything that's needed, to like really help them go to the next level, which is the fun part of development. I still love working with artists at the early stage. But then what happened was I went to Atlantic.
Okay. Now, what year did you make that move to Atlantic?
2014, I believe.
Okay.
I think it was 2014. And going back to that conversation about the clock, I knew once I left and I went there, you get a contract. So once you get there, once you start there, to me, it's like lighting the stick of dynamite. Like,
Yeah. You either get
Right.
out of the building or the building's going to explode.
you got to work towards your next contract.
Yeah.
So, and it was so different. It was such a vast approach to A&Ring. Like my style of A&Ring is very gut and very intuitive. I hear it. I'm able to say, why don't you do this a little, almost like the Puffy way, so to speak. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily read music. But here, your resources are so vast. It's like, do you know this producer? Who's some of the, I remember I got asked, who's some of the top liners that you work with? I'm like,
What does that mean?
yeah, like songwriters.
Oh,
I'm
songwriters,
like,
okay.
songwriters. I'm like, whoever comes on the hook,
Right.
whoever wrote the hook,
Yeah.
But now here you're like, you go out and find the top liner,
Yes.
and connect them with the boy wonder,
Wow.
for like 2 or 3 days and see what they can come up with. You have to create the idea,
Yeah.
and it was straight up. Atlantic's been A&R school. It was A&R school when I first got there, and for someone like me who was already used to one system for so long, I had to do a massive game of catching up, but also readjusting.
Yeah, because even culturally, for people who know, I mean, Goliath, Shady, that's very much like a family, a small company to
Small,
go to.
it's its own world, it's its own
Yeah.
bubble, quite honestly, because it's just like, it's not until you step out there, you're like, oh wow,
This is what other
how they do
people are
it.
doing. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's just like,
And also to go to Atlantic, I mean, not just a bigger company, but the house that Ahmet Erdogan built, like you
Oh.
have that history, like it's
they had
a lot.
from the outside looking in, they had runs, plural.
Yeah.
Like they were T.I.,
Yeah.
Wiz, Lupe. Like these guys were Trick Daddy. They were bodying it,
So they're like,
individual
so what are
art.
you going to do for us now?
Thank you. Exactly.
Right.
So, I get there, find my footing. I do well. I get Wiz. Been working with Wiz ever since. Worked, one of my first like, was We Them Boys.
Okay.
Which we ended up working with, it was, that was a moment because I had to, do some showing and proving and get Wiz's trust. And then as time went on, worked with Travis McCoy from Gym Class Heroes. I brought in Action Bronson, got our first gold. His first and only gold record was the record he,
Was that with the
we had-
Chance record?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that
Slow Down Baby. What's
it was
Baby Blue. Baby Blue. Yes.
It was Baby Blue, and it was like, yo, my boy Mark Ronson, who I've known for years, likes you. Mark Bronson, let's go. And,
Bronson.
Bronson.
Very cute.
Little company there.
Yeah.
But and that panned out well, but it wasn't until Hamilton that things really just like, oh, okay. And one of the things that, again, I like to play on the left side. Like if everybody's going this way, I like to look elsewhere. That's always been my approach with A&R. Just look where no one else is looking. And everyone's,
Which is hard because I think especially in hip hop, we like to find a sound or a producer or an artist, and everyone gloms onto that flavor of the moment. But you start thinking, okay, if everyone's doing that, you're not differentiating yourself as an executive.
You're
'Cause
not.
anybody could do that.
You're not. And I have to stimulate the same way. My ear's numb. So if I hear something that sounds familiar, it won't react.
Right.
But if it sounds a little distinct, it kind of perks up.
Yeah.
Same thing with the public. Like the public, you got to kind of disrupt what they're their palette is at the moment. So everyone's kind of doing the same thing and looking the same. You got to come in with something that sonically plays in that space, but is able to slightly disrupt and get their attention.
For sure. So you mentioned Hamilton. So I think for those of us who are in New York, the one show that everyone has tried to get tickets for, including myself, and failed miserably, is Hamilton. So how did that project come across your desk? Just kind of walk me through that, because the idea of a hip hop Broadway show with the brilliant mind of Lin-Manuel.
Man, I was brought in for the pitch meeting. We knew that he was coming into the building, and I was brought in as a hip hop guy.
Okay.
I was the token hip hop guy who, by the way, also happened to grow up around the same neighborhood he grew up. We knew of each other.
Okay.
But we never met. He knew from me from my articles and my work at Shady.
Of course.
And I knew of him, of course, as being the guy who did a play about the neighborhood within the Heights.
Yes.
So he comes in and he's like, my next project is a hip hop play on Alexander Hamilton. And I'm like...
And everyone in the room's like, yeah, we're going to wrap this meeting up.
Well, no, not quite. The fellas that brought me in, Craig Kalman and Pete Gambard, you know, one's the head of pop and the other one's the head of the company.
Right.
They're already familiar with not only him as a genius, as from a music standpoint, from a Broadway musical standpoint, but you know, they're like ready to do whatever he wants to do.
Right.
I'm like, cool. Keeping in mind that hip hop and Broadway historically just never gotten along.
Right.
It's just never have. They tried it. It's just like it hasn't really connected. Meanwhile, the elements are there for it to work.
Sure.
It's just you needed somebody or something to really put it all together.
Yeah. And also just Hamilton, you know, like... Yes,
then it was that. Yeah.
Right,
I'm like
who
Hamilton.
knows the history of Alexander Hamilton? Although, again, very instrumental in the history of America. But it's not like Washington.
I didn't know that. Thank you. I said the same exact
Lincoln
thing.
would be great. Yeah.
I did not pay attention in history like that. To know that Alexander Hamilton played a role in the way this country is even
all I remember
now.
was the duel. I'm like, all right, well, he got shot by a guy named Aaron. So what do you want me to do with this?
You knew more than I did.
Yeah.
So he comes in, tells us the idea, and, you know, he...
I mean, what is your face looking like now? Because I'm sure you get pitched ideas where you're like, Do you do like that weird smile? Do you do the head nod?
Well,
I do
was
like the blank head nod. That's what I do.
I'm very hard to I'm a bad liar.
Okay.
So and you could just tell my reaction right off the rip.
Right.
But when he's so like already my mind's stimulated and already playing on the left side, so I'm open. I'm not even skeptic. I'm just like, all right, cool. So within the meeting is like, come to the dress rehearsal.
Okay.
So you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But already I was in. Like, I'm willing to take a chance.
Yeah.
I go to the dress rehearsal. Mm-hmm. I walk in. Everybody's there. And I look at the audience. The audience is eclectic. You know, eclectic.
I'm surprised by that because Broadway's pretty notorious for being mostly white, mostly older. Like, it's harder to get younger
white. No,
people.
it was white and eclectic. White eclectic.
Okay.
I didn't really see too many folks of color in there.
Okay.
But, you know, again, because it's Lynn and the stuff that he's done in the past, it was definitely not... At the time, I didn't know what a Broadway crowd looked like.
Right.
So I'm looking around, I'm like, all right, cool. And I'm expecting some really corny, like, well, I was hey, right.
Yeah.
You know? And the first few... When the dude comes out, he starts, how does the bastard horseman, son of... I was like, yo.
He's like rapping, for real.
This is bars.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like bars.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, after like a couple more bars, I'm like, all right. Like, I'm looking around to see if anybody's reacting the way I'm reacting.
Right.
And people are just like, they're into it.
Yeah.
So it's new to them.
Yep.
But to me, I'm like, yo,
he's just rapping.
He's like, there's a cadence. I liken it to Eminem on a Renegade. Mm-hmm. The flow is just so fluid, and the way the back and forth between they're talking to each other. I'm waiting to get I'm waiting to catch some sort of they fucked up there.
Right.
And not a single moment.
Yep.
Was somebody fucking up their approach and the way they rhyme and came back to each other. I was like, yo, this is crazy. So I go crazy, the lights go up, and I'm like looking for someone to just be like, crazy, right? Right. But like there's nobody there.
Right.
And you hear the Mobb Deep references, you hear the Big Pun references,
right.
You just hear the references and like this shit is flawless.
Yeah.
So I run back to Atlantic. I'm like, yo, we need to do forget the soundtrack, which is really what we wanted, that we were
Right.
pitching for.
Yeah.
If you guys can get involved with the play in some capacity, please do. And I think we were in some small capacity initially.
Okay.
Well, Lem Blavatnik was the founder, not the founder, but the owner
Warner.
of Warner.
Mm-hmm.
And they got involved early, but and I still couldn't get this deal done.
Oh. What did you want? You wanted Atlantic to be really instrumental in the play.
If they can, cool. But ultimately, we're fine with just doing the soundtrack. Yeah,
it's going to be a thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and tell you that it was going to be a thing. I just knew it was dope.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, that's my barometer.
Yep.
If the shit is dope. And, I come back. Guys, we need to do the deal. It's an expensive deal. Expensive when you think about that Broadway cast albums don't sell.
No.
Like, they just don't sell.
I think the last one I had was Rent from 20 years ago.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There was that, and there was Book of Mormons.
I also have Fiddler, which is a personal favorite, but that's not
cool.
Here nor there.
It's cool. Enjoy. And it's just it was just not, they don't sell. So they're asking.
Not going platinum, for sure.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, but I got this idea. I'm going to bring I said, I'm going to get the Roots involved. Because here's what I told Lynn. Pick 3 producers that you would want to bring on, that come on board to really give it some sort of sonic, to give the Sonics a bit of, a bit of a hip hop feel.
Yeah.
He's like Questlove, Salam Remy, Mike Elizondo.
Great.
In that order.
Yeah.
So the reason I ended up getting the deal done is because out of everyone that was pitching, Columbia, Non-Such, all these other labels, even Warner, because I promised Lynn, if you do this soundtrack with me over here, I promise you it won't stay in Broadway.
Wow.
Because that would be a massive disservice to this amazing work of hip-hop art that you've done. This is art, so let's treat it as such. Shit, we'll even do a mixtape. Let's do a mixtape, where it's just we start taking elements from the play and just put them in a much more, hip-hop, urban pop, whatever. Just play around with genres. And just to make sure I'm getting this right. So I finally get the Roots involved. So now at the time I've got to drag.
Were they totally involved, or did you have to do a little bit of,
What? I had to smuggle rappers to go see the play.
Yeah.
I had to go smuggle. I had to Bus.
Please.
I need a favor. I need you to come see this play. Because I knew that once they sat down, it sold itself.
Yep.
I just got to get them to the theater. So I did that with the Roots. I did that with Busta Rhymes. I did that with, Angie Martinez. It's just I just kept smuggling folks to go check it out. So the Roots are halfway through when the lights go up, just during the halftime intermission. They're like, I'm in. What do you want to do?
Wow.
So now I got enough ammo to go back to Atlantic and say, hey, I got the Roots involved. The Roots don't sell. That's what I got hit with. Yeah. So it's just the Roots ain't selling and I'm just but it's not a sale thing.
Right.
It's a what's the word I'm looking for?
It's almost like a prestige project.
Prestige.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bingo. Yeah. This is all prestige.
Yeah.
And I think that Roots being involved will definitely make sure, at least it's the first step in making sure that it goes beyond Broadway.
Yep.
And we got the deal done. We we worked on the album. We did what we did, and it's now 4 million. It's quadruple platinum, 6 gold singles.
Amazing.
3 recently just went gold, and it's just this thing. Pulitzer Prize winning. It's just they're
performing
amazing.
at the White House for Obama and Michelle. It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Again, my intention was never for this to pop off like that. I knew it was dope.
Yeah.
And I knew that it would affect. I'm a big component for music education. I knew that this would be a massive weapon of mass destruction for music education.
Yeah.
Because you're knocking out 2 birds with 1 shot.
Yeah, that's true. So kind of on your end, who are you excited by? I mean, you mentioned you're working with Joyner, but in the future, what are you kind of just amped up for? A specific scene or sound that's really kind of piquing your interest?
I do appreciate, man. It's unfortunate.
I mean, Latin trap is happening, right? I want to make sure we understood.
That's not even a wave. That's not a wave. That's permanent.
Okay, because you saw
genre.
the VMAs have their whole Latin category this year.
That's
you saw
genre.
that. Okay.
That's a genre.
Okay.
It's and believe it or not, labels still are a little late on that.
Well, you remember the first wave, right? Like Daddy Yankee and with
Well, that's the
Pitbull.
problem. The problem is that
They
people
treat it
think,
like a trend.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a wave. It's not. And Justin Bieber, God bless his soul, came out with what I call a white reggaeton record called Sorry. And
Yeah.
that it got folks, it put that tempo, which is a reggaeton tempo,
Mm-hmm.
in the public ear space. It's just like, oh wow, okay, it sounds like Sorry. So now it gave permission for Despacito and some of these other records to just seem somewhat familiar to the ear. But that is not a wave anymore. That is a genre. And the generation gap between, it's like these kids are now growing up on Migos.
Right.
That's their standard.
Yeah.
And Travis Scott. Travis Scott is a big influence in that space. If you listen to Bad Bunny, that's basically Travis Scott.
Right.
I'm excited with that because that's still growing. It's unfortunate that he died for people to appreciate what he was doing, but X really, I thought, was on the verge of doing some really progressive, almost like he was about to hit uncharted territory.
Yeah.
And I know this because my good friend Orlando had played me this stuff early.
Wow. Like before X had signed his deal.
Yo, way before.
Wow.
He played a big role in his signing with Empire. And
Did you guys want to sign him at all?
I don't know if I know he was on our radar.
Okay.
But again, like one of our star A&Rs brought him to the table, so I don't know why we didn't.
Sure.
Or if he even wanted to. But, like, dude was the stuff that he played me, I was like, wow, he can go from here to there. He can go to grunge, he can go tribe, go Questish, he can go anywhere he wanted. That last album really showcased how freaking good that kid was. So for him to pass so prematurely sucks. But he will influence. There's about 4 or 5 of them that are going to come out of there.
Mm-hmm.
X is going to be the influence to possibly the next great one.
Right. But I think with X, his musical talent was there, but in many ways his public persona, obviously the allegations against him really.
Oh, of course. Nobody
sort
wants
of
to touch that.
Yeah, but so on your end, right? Because you're getting pitched these artists, maybe even, people fuck with the artist musically. What happens if you see, maybe they're problematic or maybe they've got some charges? Have you ever dealt with an artist and be like, you know what, I just don't want to touch that? Or is it like, look, your personal life is your personal life. We're working with you professionally. How do you reconcile the two, if at all?
All the great ones have issues.
Okay. That's fair.
All the great ones. Go back.
Yeah.
DMX, Eminem,
Yeah.
Biff. All the great ones come with some sort of issue.
Yeah.
It's just.
Is there a hierarchy though? Okay, these issues I can deal with, but these issues I can't. Just in our climate in 2018.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think nobody wants any kind of press where you're supporting some sort of, that goes against, people are really watching their ethics nowadays, man.
Yeah.
People are really watching their standards. It's like, yo, you're really going to support this? You'll get called out on it.
For sure.
Like, you're going to support this baby killer or whatever,
Right,
this wife batter. Like,
right.
Nobody wants no parts of that.
Yeah, for sure. But then from your end, obviously kind of being so close to the talent, but also, being a veteran in the industry, you have a family.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a part of you that wants to kind of take these artists and sort of mentor them? Is that a part of sort of your process at all? Or
I would love to, and normally I do. Like,
okay.
That's my, whenever I sign an artist, I think it's my job as a responsible adult to just, really school
you are the
them.
dad in the room, yeah.
I got to school them and just, at least bring the kind of perspective that'll just allow them to grow.
Yeah.
I have to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you enable the fuckery, then, that's, I don't know if I can sleep at night doing that. That's not really my cup of tea. But every artist that I deal with, I have to provide some perspective. Again, as A&R, your therapist, your guide, your brother, your consigliere, all the above, you know? So, look, I A&R OT Genesis.
Great.
Right? And again, I normally deal in an eclectic, so the eclectic side of it all, but I also signed OT Genesis. So when he popped off with
Who, by the way, just had hit after hit.
Yo,
just FYI. For
FYI.
anyone who doesn't know that.
FYI, right?
Yeah.
But the first one of those hits was I'm in Love with the Coco. And I'm like, big record, dope. And it wasn't until I started getting videos of kids going along with it that you're like, damn, dog.
But maybe the kids don't know what Coco is.
No, they don't. But that message is still out there. The kid's going to ask, what do you mean by Coco?
Right.
You know, so
it's not hot cocoa.
yeah,
But
and, yeah, and you kind of like, you know, you're kind of contributing to that, and that's a weird feeling.
Do you let your kids listen to those records? Or they only get the Hamilton soundtrack on repeat?
Nah, my kid loves Cut It from OC Genesis.
Wow.
At the age of 2, he was already reacting to it. And I'm just like, there's a beauty in trap music and its simplicity.
Sure.
It connects with the kids. It's just too simple for you not to be like, what's the
It's
record?
almost like a nursery rhyme, you know, just the way,
Work.
Yeah.
Work. It's total
It's hypnotic,
nursery rhymes.
yeah.
Very hypnotic.
Yeah.
You know, so
you're not one of those dads who's like, look, this is my work, but you are not allowed to hear this. Parental advisory sticker.
Nah,
Okay.
there was no filter on mine. I mean, I grew up on NWA, so it's just like,
Right.
you know, like I let them listen to whatever they want to listen to.
Yeah.
I consciously don't play everything around.
Well, it's funny because I think what we're seeing, especially in this era compared to like sort of the previous era, before rappers would brag about selling. Now it's all about taking, right? And it's prescriptions. Man. I'm an addict. I'm on Xanax. I'm on this.
And fucking
your
bitch.
Well, that was always there because that's always the best insult,
like
right?
That's like
I'm going to fuck your bitch. That's the best insult that I can like offend you as a man.
Yeah, but it's
what
like
else
but it's every few bars now.
Well, now I'm going to do it on Instagram and you're going to watch.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, God, yeah.
And by the way, she sells detox tea.
And my thing,
and I'm paying for your child.
Well, by the way,
that's
the thing. I don't mind. I know, right? I don't mind. Go ahead and say I'm a fucking yo bitch. Right. It's just a perspective. Like even with street artists, I love street music, but I'm like, I don't need 7 dudes talking about how they shooting the block up. Tell me how you shooting the block up.
Right. How will you fuck my bitch?
Yeah.
That's
give me the ramifications of you shooting the block up.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you shot at that corner, but did you miss?
Right.
Did you hit an innocent bystander? Are you now on the run? Like, give me some.
Can you do the song
shit.
from the standpoint of the bystander? Maybe the
give
standpoint of the bullet,
shit.
like Nas, you know, the gun.
Give me that. Give me that. You know, so.
Yeah, I think it's that where, and I guess my question is, with so many artists, are you even living this life? If you're 12 and you just moved out of your parents' house, I don't think you're fucking anyone's bitch. And all those prescriptions have your parents' names on them.
You know, on top of that, every demo these kids come and perform and showcase, they're like, you know, chain size of them. Like,
right.
you're not wearing a chain.
You're not wearing a chain, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, watch glistening. Like, I'm like, you're not wearing a watch. It's just like, it's not their fault. That's all they know.
Yeah.
You know, there's a standard that they're listening to on the radio, on the street, or on World Star that they think that's, you know, what people want to hear.
Yeah. So for you, what kind of keeps you motivated and inspired to keep doing this?
Music, which is a simple answer, you know, but just the uncharted territory. I think we're getting to a place now where, you know, what fascinates me so much, the generation gap is so wide and it's such a short amount of time. Like if you're 25, you're old to these kids. Which is crazy because at 25 was when you really start getting into a creative rhythm.
If you're 18, you were born in 2000.
Yeah, crazy.
Like, that's crazy.
And I love hearing their perspective. I love, like, when Yachty went ahead and said, you know, I don't listen to Biggie, I listen to Drake. Yo, he wasn't around for Big.
Makes sense.
The game changes every few years. So I don't know if anybody can appreciate the 808 drum and snare of, like, an 808 of an Eric B. and Rakim album. Or the... you know, the jazzy hard drums of A Tribe Called Quest.
Right.
Like, we just don't do a good job at passing that down. And sometimes these kids don't want, they don't want you to, don't shove your philosophies down their throat. They're going to live and learn. And they'll go from there. Over the past 2 years alone, we've lost a lot of really great, talented artists. Don't think that doesn't have an effect on them.
Yeah.
So don't hit them with the, you know, or you out here doing your drugs and it's like,
don't do drugs. Drugs are bad.
Come on, bro.
Right.
Like somebody
it didn't work on us.
It did not work on us. Come on, man. Like,
yeah.
So it's fascinating to watch this unfold because we're now going into uncharted territory and these kids are in the driver's seat. So I want to see who comes from there.